So excited, man. I cannot tell you, man. Congrats. Man, you knew it with the colors and everything. Like that hat fits you really well. Yes, sir.
Hold on 1 second. We got another one for you.
One more room.
Yes, Sirski. Yes, Sirski. What's good, my boy? Hey, big drip. Stop playing. Hey, I said, damn. Big money. When you come up here? Okay, bet. I'll probably see you tomorrow, man.
Zach Dick in the building, looking sharp. What's up? Look at that. Look at that. Look at this. This is what I'm saying. If you're gonna do it, you gotta do it big, Zach. Come on, Zach. Come on, give us a big.
Yeah, Gradey. Yeah, Gradey. Yeah. Love the kids. My boy got a billboard, man. Happy for him.
How much are you looking forward to getting in the gym with Scotty Barnes?
Oh my God, that guy is such tremendous talent. Everything that I'm hearing him as a person, that how he brings the energy to the gym, the way he's working and improving. I'm really excited to meet him in person and to get on the floor and to work with him. I think the sky is the limit for him. We're gonna really try to help him in any possible way to continue to grow.
How y'all doing? Is this on? Am I on? How's this doing? All right. Okay. You would figure that I would figure out the mic placement. Let me know if you can hear me. Today, we are going to be talking about the Toronto Raptors. What else would we be talking about? We're going to be talking about Gradey Dick a little bit more on the scouting report, which is coming out. And we're definitely going to be talking about Marquis Nowell because I think it's something worth addressing. This is a team that has talked about Vision 6'9" the entire way through, and suddenly you got a 5'7" point guard on your team. Wow, that's interesting. Really tough competitor. We're gonna definitely get into that. We're gonna get into the vibes in Toronto. I'm gonna give you a nice little update about where this channel is going. There's some exciting stuff coming down the pipeline, and we're also gonna be talking about something a little bit more personal at the end, which is something called CPT. Wait, hold on. CPTSD. We're gonna talk about that a little bit too, and hopefully it'll explain some stuff. First, let's talk about Gary Trent Sr. being on the Raptors morning show or the fan morning show. It's a very interesting and illuminating interview. And right now, one of the exciting things that I want to present is I am trying my best to get access to Gary because I think Gary Sr., because I think that it would be a fantastic, he's got just this remarkable candor about him. And I think if there's anyone who can accurately describe what happened last year, because things have been coming out right, more and more. So I think that if there's anyone who can accurately talk to it, who would be open to doing so, it would be him. So I would love to have a conversation with him, and hopefully we can get that set up sometime in the next month. Let's see. Some refreshing admissions that are just continuously coming out, and the actions are matching up with it, right? We've talked about Darko Rajakovic, just the vibe. You can feel it, right? You can feel it in his interview. You can feel it in his interaction with Scotty there. You can feel it in his interaction with Gradey Dick. There's genuine joy there. I posted a picture today of Bilal Coulibaly right in front of the Wizards, 7th overall pick. And there's like a welcome Bilal Coulibaly sign behind him. And it just made me realize he looked like an independent filmmaker that just showed up to his film. You know what I mean? Like there was a smallness to it. That's a 7th overall pick. Splurge on a billboard, my friends. I mean, I don't know if they did, but the picture that he took was uninspiring. Compare that to that massive billboard outside of Scotiabank for Gradey Dick. It's the same thing they did for Scotty and Delano 2 years ago. It's the same thing they did for Christian last year. This organization is high class. And it was frustrating all of last year for this channel and this community and myself specifically to watch it go downhill in such a clear and transparent way. So listening to Masai call it selfish, maybe we're selfish at the trade deadline, watching Bobby Webster call it for what he called it. And what did I tell you at the trade deadline? You know, Bobby Webster saying stat padding. We were stat padding. When have you ever heard a GM say that? And then to listen to Gary Trent Sr. just openly call out locker room tensions, 9 guys looking around, 9 guys on the trading block. I didn't know that. I didn't know 9 guys on the trading block. My estimate would have been 7, 9. And he referenced that number a few times. Guys just looking around. Are you going to be here? Are you going to be here? And he talks about, opportunity. And he drops a bombshell. Some people suspected it. I did not know this, but he said that Darko Rajakovic signing on as the head coach was the biggest reason for Gary Trent Jr. coming back. Wow. Now, this is as scathing an indictment of Nick Nurse and the locker room culture that he allowed to persist under his watch as I've seen. It's as clear an admission, right? We're not coming back if this guy's back. We'll come back if this guy's back. That's interesting. And then he went on to say he didn't even know Darko. Didn't know much about him. Just went on to vague pleasantries. If we have a conversation, I'll be happy to fill him in on what I know. But what an interesting comment. By the way, this is not, we got the coach that I really, really like. We just got anybody else. Just this guy being gone is why Gary's back. And Gary being back is a gift to the Toronto Raptors. It's such an interesting thing how sometimes things parallel. I've referenced that my entire shift on Gary was due to a presser where one of the biggest reasons where he said, be an energy giver, not an energy taker. And you know what's hilarious? When they were interviewing Kansas assistant coach, they talked about that being one of the preaching principles in Gradey Dick's locker room last year. Be an energy giver, not an energy taker. Gradey Dick is an energy giver. Gary Trent Jr. is an energy giver. Darko Rajakovic is an energy giver. Scotty Barnes is the ultimate energy giver. I think Jakob Poeltl is an energy giver. If you've ever seen some of his interviews and seen his teammates interact with him, he seems like an energy giver. Jama Mashalela is an energy giver. I don't really know much about Pat, to be honest, but it is interesting that this organization is doing a complete 180 on the type of people that they're trying to bring into this organization right now. No, this is not shade on Delano Banton, Jalen Harris, Malachi Flynn, etc. But you can really feel the openness, right? And the energy sort of brimming off the page with the people that they're bringing into this organization. So I think that this is something that is starting a trend where the Raptors are willing to explore a different idea than the one that they've been exploring for the last 3-4 years. I think this goes into a question that I've had. Is Vision 6-9 a failure? Is it a failure? Has it been a failure? I mean, the minute that you brought in Jakob Poeltl, the insistence for 2 years that you could do this whole thing without a center sort of goes out the window. And a lot of people who were calling for a center, I was not one of them, just to be clear, feel validated. That, hey, we told you needed a center. You couldn't just do this with Alex Len, Aaron Baines, and Kem Birch. And now you go out and get a center. You draft Christian Koloko. I think the shift has been coming for a while. What is consistent, however, is they like hard workers. I've had a lot of time to really investigate and think about and research Marquis Nowell and Gradey Dick, the two newest members of the Toronto Raptors. Let's talk about both of them. Now, my head was down during the live reaction. I wish I'd reacted a little bit better, but it is what it is. I was higher on Jordan Hawkins. I was higher on Kobe Buffkin, but I'm willing to entertain the idea that Gradey Dick could be a really great player for the Toronto Raptors. Marquis Nowell, my first thought was great in the tournament, but man, 5'7", is he ever going to crack the rotation? He measured in barefoot 5'6 3/4, 6 foot wingspan, but still, that's awfully small. That's 3 inches smaller than Isaiah Thomas. That's 5 inches smaller than Kemba Walker. That's 5.5 inches shorter than Fred VanVleet. But he makes up for it a little bit with heart, hustle, smart playmaking, elite ball control, an incredible handle. Probably going to come in day one of the 3 most skilled Raptors on the team. Is that a hot take? No. You make the league as a 5'6.5" guy, 5'7", you must be extremely skilled. He is the smallest player in the NBA right now. Will he actually get run? Well, the Raptors signed him to a two-way. They could have signed him to a camp deal. They've shown a lot of faith right now in giving him a two-way right away. This is not an Exhibit 10 deal. They'll have to actually, like, there's a guarantee here. He's getting money. And watching his draft party, I got shades of Fred VanVleet all over again, right? The way that he addressed everyone who was there for him, supporting him, the whole bet on yourself vibe. Hey, man, if you need a Rudy, you got a Rudy. Also, as a New York kid, I really do appreciate New York point guards. I grew up watching New York point guards like Stephon Marbury and, Rafer Alston, Skip Malou. There is a swagger that comes with these guys. There's a vibe, and it's a good vibe. It's a great vibe to have at the end of your bench. It may not be the greatest vibe to have in a leadership position, but it is a great vibe to have at the end of your bench. They push people, they inspire people, they call out people. It's great. Accountability 101. He's a really good passer. He was a very above average three-point shooter, deep range, excellent, getting to the line. I don't know if that's going to translate in the NBA. Worst case scenario, this is going to make the 905 very interesting to watch next year. I think he could be, I don't know. I spoke to someone who said one day this guy's going to be the MVP in Europe or something. Like, he's got that type of package where if you can take some of the advantages down, a lot of that Scoot Henderson, Case and Wallace dog, we talk about dog, he's got the dog. So that's great. To Gradey Dick, some interesting tidbits have floated out over the next day as, people interviewed his ex-coaches, ex-teammates. One story in particular, a couple of stories, which I'll get into the scouting report, but I'll give you a teaser of it now. The thing that really, really appealed to me was shooting in the dark. I really like this. I used to do this too, and it made me a much better shooter because they would turn off the lights around 12 o'clock and I wouldn't stop shooting until about 2 a.m. when I was a kid. And so the last 2 hours of my shoot around where I would play Beat Larry Bird or one of those things, it was always in the dark. And suddenly when the lights are on, your muscle memory is so tracked from certain angles and certain places on the court, you can just get that shot off like with your eyes closed. It's really interesting that he's perfected this. All accounts, really hard worker, extremely obsessively hard worker. I'll reference it again. Someone that I really trust said you might see shades of guys like Reggie Miller, and he mentioned specifically Drazen Petrovic. If that is really the upside here, you got to understand these are two players that did not take a lot of threes in their career. If you have a gunner like that, if you have a guy who can get a shot off, and look, he's a big shooter. You see how hard it is for guys to guard Tyler Hero on that jump shot. I mean, I know he had a bad season last year, but the high release and the tall shooter profile works really well if they can move and they're even reasonable on defense. So if he pops, yes, his upside is tremendous. There's so many obstacles in his way to pop. But I want to address something that I've noticed more in the last day or so of watching him. I think he's a better athlete than I gave him credit for initially. The games that I watched of Gradey Dick, there was a lot of getting blown by on defense. Lateral quickness is not his strength right now. But getting up and down the court is also part of athleticism. Coordination, balance is also part of athleticism. Fluidity, flexibility. These are all parts of athleticism. And he has that. Like, he really has something there. Like, when I watch him move, there's no hitch to his movement. It's all one motion. And it's actually very rare. And when you start comparing him to guys like Duncan or guys like Corey Kispert or even guys like Nick Stauskas, they were never quite fluid in their athletic movement. And you always felt like, will the shot translate? Now, who stays, who goes? Because it seems like this front office has conceded that the culture was not right and the culture drivers were not right. And if everything Gary Trent Sr. is saying, it seems like the leadership was not right on this team. Now, I'm going to share with you a bit of a deeper insight into why I think the leadership needs restructuring on this team. Now, Aaron Rose has said Thaddeus Young was not a problem on this team. Fine. His track record on leadership with young players has been pretty flawless. So whether or not he was disruptive, I certainly don't think that he was I don't think that he solved things clearly because things went off the rails. So is it something as simple as too many guys with expiring contracts? Is that really it? Right? Is that it? Like you put too many guys in bet on yourself situations, from Pascal to OG. They're all extension eligible. Gary, Fred, Nurse. You have five guys among your starters and your rotation players, and everyone but Scotty basically is up for a contract. Does it add too much pressure when the losses start to pile up because everyone's agents are calling them saying, if you end up on a 30-win team this year, your contract is off the table. This contract's off the table. All NBA's off the table. Did it add too much pressure? Does simply changing the coach and removing the obstacle of contract extensions change the entire dynamic of this locker room? You wonder. They fired a lot of people this year. I don't know if it's out there, like how many people they fired, but they fired a ton of people. It's not just Nurse. It's not just Earl Watson and Rico Hines. It's a lot of people. The faces will be different. Is that enough? Can Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam thrive or fit in on a team where the vibes are shifting from me to we? Are they capable of truly buying in to less isolation possessions, more ball movement, more trust? Are they? There was a really interesting video which got me thinking a lot. And it's on Gradey Dick and his fit with the Raptors. And in it, it said, I would be fine with Pascal Siakam coming back or something along those lines, but please, I don't feel that way about Fred VanVleet. I want Fred VanVleet gone. I don't want him in the same vicinity as Gradey Dick. And I got to tell you, as I watched Gradey Dick parade around in his Dolce & Gabbana suit, which is $3,900 for those of you who are wondering, you can purchase your own if you feel so inclined. As I watched Gradey bounce around and do parkour on TikTok, as I watched him do Donald Duck impressions, something stuck in me. Fred VanVleet's going to hate this guy. He's going to hate him. Not only is he a lottery pick, not only is he a former McDonald's All-American, I believe he's a McDonald's All-American, he was definitely the Gatorade Player of the Year, joining LeBron, Dwight Howard. A lot of former first overall picks for Gatorade Player of the Year. Also a lot of busts. Just saying. It's a mixed bag. Imani Bates, second rounder. James Wiseman, bust. Gives you a feeling on just how much the evaluation process is flawed and somewhat unpredictable. But it just got me thinking, Fred is not going to be able to stand this guy. He's going to judge him, probably. This is my opinion. Again, it's my opinion. I don't know Fred VanVleet. I don't know him from Adam. So this is just my opinion. You can take it with a grain of salt. But I believe that certain people just don't vibe. And I wonder if Fred VanVleet is going to be the type of person who vibes with that. You know, a story comes to mind where how do I talk about this without talking about the other thing? Man, I wanted to save this for the end, but let me just do a 2-minute sidebar to introduce where I'm coming at this from. Okay. So those of you who know this channel well, you know that I tend to take this conversation sometimes away from basketball to bring it back to basketball. My goal here is to enrich basketball discussion with life discussion. So the ability to perhaps use body language analysis to tell you that a draft prospect is not confident is not exact science, but it is a hypothesis. And you'd be surprised how often it turns out to be correct. Because as someone who doesn't know anyone on the Raptors, except for one player last year, but doesn't really have any deep insight. I'm not in the locker rooms. I'm not a media guy. I'm not a beat guy. How do you think that 2 years ago, I was on a Facebook group saying Scotty and Fred, the vibe is not right. The vibe is not right between these two. Pascal and Scotty, you know, how do you think that I was able to see that? It's because I'm very observant. I'm obsessively observant. And I want to tell you a little bit about where that comes from. I had a conversation with my cousin yesterday, and it was very interesting because we often don't remember who we were as kids. And he referenced a time when they had come from Europe and they had come to visit me and my family. when we were in New York. And he said, you know, even at 5 years old, you didn't trust anybody. You were just looking around, really suspicious at everyone. You questioned everything. You just seemed like a very uneasy kid. And that's true. That's very true. And to those of you who've been with this channel for a long time, you certainly understand why. I have complex PTSD. And complex PTSD, for those of you who don't know, is a little bit dissimilar from PTSD, whereas PTSD is specifically a single event, like you watched somebody in a war, or a single event, or an accident, a car accident can create PTSD. Complex PTSD comes from prolonged exposure to traumatic events. Traumatic events, of course, being defined as anything that impacts your day-to-day thoughts and observations. Over a period of my childhood, I had a lot of people who were deceptive around me. This is family members, friends, whatever. And this always shattered me. We moved around a lot when I was a kid. So I'd move from place to place to place. And sometimes in the middle of the night, I wouldn't even have a warning about it, right? It's literally 2 a.m. and it's like, pack up your bags, we're changing schools. And it disrupts you. It disrupts you majorly. And it makes you a very different person. It makes you a very unchill person. I'm not a chill person. I don't know if you can tell that from everything about me. I've had to work really hard to get to a place where I'm not anxious all the time, because I am by nature not Scotty Barnes. I am nothing like Scotty Barnes. When people hug me, I cringe. I used to cringe, at least. I'm good at giving hugs back now. But like, my point here is that I obsessively try to read people because I don't trust people, because I don't take people at face value. And so when I see signs of deception, it really triggers something in me. And I can notice this sort of behavior of CPTSD and non-neurotypical behavior in other people as well, pretty well. Not a psychologist, not trained in this, whatever. It's just an observation as someone who's lived with it for a very long time. And I can see when people have a lot of damage in their past. I can see when people have a lot of hangups. I can see when people have a lot of trust issues. And I'm trying to be observant of it. And one of those things that really, really hit me like really hard was when Pascal Siakam described an encounter with Scotty Barnes. And it was just a compare and contrast between Goran Dragic and Pascal Siakam, and how they talked about Scotty Barnes as a rookie in the opening day media presser. And Goran, just his whole face lit up when he was talking about Scotty. He's talking about his potential. He's talking about the relationship that they're forming, conversations that they're having. You're like, oh, these guys are boys. They're tight. And Scotty confirmed it later. You know, there was no confirmation at that moment, but within one sentence and his reaction to Scotty, you could tell that this is a person who genuinely cares for him, believes in him, wants the best for him, is tight with him, is endeared to him. You can tell that. With Pascal Siakam, it didn't feel so much. You know, it felt like more like a person who was unsure of him. He talked about how Scotty chest bumped him. You know, he just came up to him, gave him a hug, and chest bumped him in the hallway. And he was just like, okay. And that's not a bad thing, but it's also not it's not a thing that will help people connect with each other. And so you have these guys, you know, like DeMar DeRozan, right? And they just vibe, and Norman Powell. And sometimes you bring in people who don't really mesh with that culture, with that vibe. And too often, what can happen is your locker room can become fractured because certain people are very mistrusting, like I am, right? And certain people are overly open and perhaps too trusting. And when you have disagreements, sometimes it really helps if people can hash it out and have great communication. And that's why communication is so great. And it seemed like last year, no one is really capable of communicating with the other side. I don't know if I've been disconnected or if I'm just super interesting, but I haven't seen a comment pop off in 6 minutes. So I'm getting a little bit worried that I have been disconnected. Am I disconnected? Do I need to leave and come back? Or am I just that engaging? I don't think I'm that engaging. Okay, sorry. My stream was frozen on my end, so I just wasn't able to see everything that you guys were seeing. I wasn't able to see the comments. Anyways, so I guess what I wanted to say was that it's been really interesting to watch people who don't have the hangups that I have and how they just move through the world, how they openly embrace people, how they're able to just hug people, how they're able to make such vast connections with people without all the hangups and mistrust that I have. And watching Scotty and Gradey Dick, you see just what normal, loving childhoods can bring for people, because they are open. And one of the things that I was noticing about Scotty was, if you followed Scotty in AAU, if you followed him in high school, you probably have seen a lot of clips, perhaps. I'm sure the Ball is Life clips are just full of this stuff. You remember the Sharks, the NSU Sharks, where he was with Vernon Carey? Well, there were a couple of really high profile, well, there were 5 really high profile NBA players on that team, or future NBA players, but they weren't obviously NBA players at that point. One of them was Taylor Hendricks, who just went 9th in the draft to the Utah Jazz. One of them was Jet Howard, who just went 11th in the draft to the to the Orlando Magic. And neither of those guys were even remotely considered lottery prospects at that age. And I think about all the young kids that developed under him at Montverde who got drafted. And I'm not saying that correlation is causation, and this may be, giving him too much credit, but it seems like anywhere Scotty goes, people grow. It just feels that way. I'm tracking this all the way through high school to university. There just seem to be a lot of guys who get better around him. And so as someone who watched this player, just live wire human being, be so happy all the time, keeping people up when they're down, helping people, tough moments. I remember moments with Scotty where, in high school, where a guy would have a tough run, he'd miss 2-3 shots, he'd come to the bench and Scotty would move over and put an arm around him and just give him that pep, like, you're good. And this year I didn't see a lot of that. And I was wondering, is it the pressure of being a pro, or is there something more to it? And watching Scotty now just come back to life, watching him communicate with Gradey Dick, watching him during the summer workouts with Brian, just watching that sort of baggage off his shoulder, that burden that he was probably feeling just playing in a locker room that was so disconnected, because this is a connector, and connectors don't thrive in disconnected environments. So it's been really good to see that. And look, we can completely agree or disagree on Scotty's upside trajectory, who he will be as a player. Just an FYI, I cannot see any of the comments. Nothing is refreshing on my side for whatever reason. I can't. So I apologize. I will do my best at the end to try and respond to some of these, but I'm not getting any interaction on my end, unfortunately. So I'm just going to hope that I'm still connected and y'all can still hear me. So it's been really nice to see what this could become for Scotty. And we can agree or disagree whether he's going to be an MVP or an all-NBA guy. We don't know that yet. I have a strong, strong belief that he will be that type of player, that he will be the type of player that you can build an entire franchise around, that he's going to show up for you in the playoffs, that he's going to continue to grow. I think last year was a complete aberration. I think people who are writing him off because of a down second year, if you want to call it that, are grossly underestimating what drives this dude. And I think that it's pretty much commendable that he was able to stay afloat last year, much less, have some really big moments in the fourth quarter and even in the play-in. I think he showed up big for the team. I think it was just a very inconsistent season for him, and I expect next year that he will be great. But whether you think he's going to be an MVP level guy or a couple-time All-Star, or if you just think that he's just going to continue to be this connective piece, I have no idea what you think, and I'm not even going to try to sell you on it. If you want my thoughts on it, watch every Scotty video I've made for the last year and a half, and you'll get a really clear impression that what I think he can be. And I think he can be great, and I know he'll be great. But whether you think he's going to be a great player, a good player, or a very above average player, which he already is, I don't think that you can deny that he's going to be a really big part of the culture reset in Toronto. I think you can't deny that he's going to be a very good teammate, that he has been a very good teammate. He's been very patient and tolerant, even with people who necessarily weren't doing the best by him. I think he gave it a lot of run and a lot of rope. It's just my reading of it, just from watching it all unfold. And I think that people will develop. I am more confident in Gradey Dick, Precious Achua, Christian Coloco developing because Scotty Barnes will help them develop. I think he'll put them in good places. I think he'll have necessary conversations with them. And to know that your ascending star player and your coach have the same philosophy on basketball, and that the front office is in alignment with that, it addresses one of Gary Trent Sr.'s biggest criticisms last year, that it felt that the front office and the head coaching staff, or the coaching staff in general, were not on the same page. I also want to say that culture impacts so much. Too many people talk about how this team didn't have shooting last year. I think that, and again, this is purely a hypothesis, but I think people shoot better when they're happier. Does that sound like the stupidest thing I've ever said in my life? I think people shoot better when they're less anxious. I think people shoot better when they're feeling better. You know, something we always say with shooters is next shot mentality. You need to keep you don't slump that way. If you start focusing, ruminating, you start to slump. You start missing 3, 4, 5. You start to second guess yourself. You start adjusting your shot too much. When you have to think too much, I think your jump shot suffers. I've always felt that way. You can fully see that when things are not going right for certain teams, you'll often see those 25, 30% shooting nights. And when things are going really well and things are connecting, you'll start to see the momentum build towards the shooting percentage. I think touch comes down to concentration. Concentration comes down to the clarity of mind. Clarity of mind comes down to an unobstructed mind. And generally speaking, happier people have more unobstructed minds. So I always felt that when I felt that my coach believed in me, that my jump shot felt better. And I'm not a high level basketball player, never played D1, D2, whatever. So maybe at the higher level, guys just learn to channel it out. It's just muscle memory at that point. But I cannot deny that there have been so many instances of people changing the situation and suddenly their entire game changes. And you wonder if it's just like a bag of bricks on their back that has been removed. And suddenly they're feeling a little bit springier on defense and their legs feel a little bit better on offense. I wonder if that's the case. I have really high hopes for the Toronto Raptors next year. Even if I'm not completely confident that Gradey Dick will be better than Jordan Hawkins or Kobe Buffkin or Cam Whitmore, I am confident that he will be a valuable piece for this team going forward, and that he has probably landed in the absolute best situation for him to develop. I also believe, perhaps, that Scotty Barnes will take the next step up. To address this Pascal Siakam thing, not wanting to be traded, or perhaps this, not wanting to sign an extension with any team that trades him. Some people are calling it loyalty. I'm a little bit less certain that it's loyalty. I think it is more fear of a new situation, perhaps. I mean, this is the same person who has often talked about how afraid he was to get on a streetcar. So to those of you just jumping to the immediate offensive that, it's just selfishness and he's just sabotaging the team, or even my previous take that it might be to help Fred VanVleet negotiate the contract, I wonder if it's just a genuine fear of change. Seems to be a person who has a lot of anxiety about change. And so I wonder if just the psychological profile is a person who likes to stay put in one place and he doesn't want to disrupt his routine too much. And Toronto is a part of his routine. So, if he has a say, I think if you're a rival team, I think that you should probably read the room and realize that if you do trade for him, odds are he will sign with you, because he wouldn't want to be going to the third team in 3 years. So I don't know. I think it's a gamble for a team. I think it's also a gamble for the Raptors. It's a gamble either way, because at some point you're going to have to address the elephant in the room. Is this guy worth $45 million? And I don't necessarily think that he is. So, and I don't know if he's going to be willing to take a secondary role at any point. But I think if you remove Fred VanVleet, you can see Scotty Barnes emerge as the leader of this team, while Pascal Siakam remains the leading shot taker. The good thing about Scotty being a leader, he would never hijack the offense. And he's always going to know if someone is better at scoring than him. He's always going to be able to defer to a guy like Gary or even a guy like OG or a guy like Pascal Siakam. He's not going to hijack the offense because he's the guy. That's just not his mentality. So he's going to be like Nikola Jokic, right? He's going to have that same mentality. So if Pascal Siakam's got it going, Pascal Siakam can get 50 points, 60 points, and Scotty's going to be right there celebrating it. What is important, however, is that the person who leads the discussion has to be your leader, and that person has to be selfless, mature, level-headed, and positive. It's important. One of the things that they talked about with Gradey Dick was he keeps it light after losses. This is a very important thing. Some people are very critical after losses. They're very bitchy. I'm that way. I fully admit it. I am that way. If you start losing and I'm on your team, I'm going to start complaining. I'm going to start criticizing you. I don't have that Scotty Barnes spirit of, well, I'm trying. Let's just say I didn't have it in high school. Okay. You miss me for 3-4 passes. I'm gonna bitch at you and I'm gonna complain and I'm gonna think that that's gonna make you better. And more than likely, it's just gonna make you nervous and it's gonna make you shut down and it's gonna make you hate me, right? But Scotty's not like that. He's not gonna do that. He's gonna teach, right? Until you do it 15 times, and then he's gonna yell. But I think that that's an important thing to have in your locker room is people who keep the mood light after losses, don't overreact, build people up, be an energy giver instead of an energy taker. That should be the slogan of the Raptors season next year. Now, once again, I cannot see any of the comments, so I apologize. I'm not being reactive. I'm not being a dick. I can't see them. I wish I could screenshot my screen for you right now. I literally cannot see anything. So just sailing blind, hoping this live is still going. To the next chapter. We are slowly encroaching on 6,000 subscribers, which is great because subscriber growth on this channel had slowed down massively. I don't think I've scratched the surface of what I can do with this channel. I know that. I don't think I've scratched the surface of how much I need to know about basketball to bring this conversation to the level that I want to. I want to be able to intelligently discuss this game with the best basketball minds in the world. And I want to know that I'm bringing something to the table. That's all. That's what I want to do. That's my goal. That's going to require more learning. It's going to require more evolution. That being said, I'm very happy with how far we've taken this, the way we've taken it. Some people noted that I have the worst mic placement in all of YouTube. I fully agree with you. This is terrible. Whether it be my mom's basement, whatever people, talk about, I will agree that my studio setup has not been right the entire way through. The video quality has not been great on these lives. Sometimes things get choppy. They're not like when I watch Amateur Hour Sports or Raptors Digest, like everything is just so damn proper. And it's obvious to me that those guys really approach shit from a very professional angle. And that's great. I've just been coasting. I've been procrastinating. I've been lazy as hell. These lives are just easier than making full cut videos. And I've just been lazy. I got to be honest. I've just been lazy. And I've just been getting by on talking about it, thinking, but I would be remiss if I did not say that being able to engage people in, 180, like 180p or whatever the hell the resolution is. This is 720p, but obviously it's not great picture quality. The lighting is shit. Being able to keep people engaged, talking about a multitude of different topics is a talent. And I think that the talent is catching on right now. So I think, and I could be wrong, and I hope I'm not wrong, but I believe I've been having 3 different discussions across the board, and these are all in their infancy stages. So you're not going to hear about it until I sign some paper and confirm it 1000%. But I'm approaching this from a lot of different angles. That I believe that this channel is about to take the next step in terms of not only production quality, not only sponsorships, but also access. I don't want to say it in case it doesn't turn out to be true, because as I've mentioned already in this live, I'm a little bit mistrusting and I don't think good things happen to me sometimes. And maybe I have that sort of what about worst case scenario situations. But whether it happens now or whether it happens a year from now, or whether it happens tomorrow. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I know it will happen. There's a lot of people who've reached out to me over the last year, who are connected to sports, connected to the team, connected to the NBA. And I'm always embarrassed. I'll be honest. I'm always embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by the video quality. I'm embarrassed that they're going to look up something that I said about Fred VanVleet and say, I'm not going to deal with this guy. He's too controversial, because it stems from childhood. It stems from childhood. I have very low self-esteem. That's just the truth. I have very high self-estimation and very low self-esteem. Does that make sense? It's taken a long time. Like, I mean, if you knew me 15 years ago, whatever, you'd say I'd had lower self-esteem, but it's weird. Like, I can aim for the moon, and then on my way there, I'll decide I'm not worthy of going to the moon, if that makes sense. So I tend to self-sabotage myself. One of the symptoms of complex PTSD is low self-esteem and doubting yourself a lot. Because when I was younger, I had to fight to speak. I was always told to shut up. I was always told my opinion didn't matter. I was always told I wasn't good at anything. I was always told that people didn't want to hear what I had to say. I was always told that what I had to say was too controversial, too honest, need to lie, need to be more political. And I rebelled. I've always rebelled. I've rebelled against dishonesty my whole life. I hate people who do it. I hate people who are political. I don't want to say hate, because hate is a strong word, and I understand people are political for their own reasons and their own advantages, but I can't stand it. But I'm also resentful of people who do it well, because, you know, some people are obviously political and they're obviously bullshitting, but those people that bullshit real well and they finesse all the favors and they enter all these little social circles and charm all these people, I'm always a little bit envious of those people. I don't find myself envying most people, but I'm always like, how do they lie? How do they finesse? How do they do that stuff, you know? So I always felt like if I was myself, that I was basically relegating myself to being small time my whole life. I always felt that, and despite the contrary examples of so many people who've been outspoken and brutally honest and have been very successful. And so over the last couple of months, something really cool has been happening, which is more and more people who I'd never expect would watch this channel, care about this channel. I just always assumed that everyone in the media space hated Pinsire basketball, because that's all I've ever heard from anybody. I assumed everyone who was connected with the Raptors probably hated Pinsire basketball, but it's just simply not true. And I'm very surprised to learn that. So hopefully, regardless of how controversial I've been the previous year, how assertively and aggressively I have, you know, criticized Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam specifically, and Nick Nurse, hopefully, that can be water under the bridge to some extent. I'm not going to suddenly start cleaning up all my ideas and thoughts, but I can hopefully learn different ways to say them and get a little bit more tactful and patient with people. I think we can all aspire to be better. I don't think it's lying to just learn to be more patient. I think it's an evolution. So I'm really hoping that all of this comes through, that those of you who've watched this channel on this terrible pixelation and, you know, these lighting setups and wacky time schedules can watch a more organized, more connected Pinsire basketball evolve in the future. And I really hope that that happens. So thank you. Thank you for sticking with me and sticking with rambling and random detours about life and all this stuff. It really sucks that I can't see the comments, because I'm pretty sure the comments are either saying like good things or bad things right now, but I'll read them later. But I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm really looking forward to a hopefully very optimistic offseason for the Toronto Raptors. I give every single thing that the Raptors have done over the last 2 months, from firing Nick Nurse to hiring Darko Rajakovic to his assistants to the Gradey Dick pick to just in general. I mean, I know they didn't really have control over this, but Gary coming back on the 1 year and potentially being up for an extension. At minimum, I give every move so far a B-. At maximum, I give it an A+. And that's a far cry from what has become a string of D pluses for me over the last couple of years, except for Christian Koloko. I've disagreed with almost everything the Raptors have done. And so I'm really looking forward to watching these young guys nurture and grow under Jama and Scotty and Darko. And I just feel this is such a first-class organization, such a first-class city. They deserve a better brand of basketball. And I'm so happy that they're about to get it. I have a feeling they're about to get it. And I hope that if Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam are back next season, that they are willing participants in that they can allow this thing to grow and go where it's going. Anyway, again, I can't see the comments, so I have no idea what y'all are saying. I don't know if there were super chats. I apologize if there were, or anything, super stickers. I apologize. I promise you I cannot see it. You know what? I'm going to try to leave and come back just so I can see the comments. Okay, we got that. Sorry to the moon. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much, Jawad. Y'all having a discussion about DeRozan. DeRozan is 10 times better than Siakam. I promise you, he is not. He is not. Not at all. Gradey Dick is the best shooter in the draft class, right? It's a good question. I think it's a... I don't think so. No, I wouldn't say so. There was a guy in the second round who, or not second round, undrafted heap, who's like 5'7", 5'8". I don't think it was Marquis Nowell, but I was hearing someone talk about it, and he showed me tape of him, and he was just shooting from like half court. It was crazy. I really believe in Jordan Hawkins as a shooter. I think Brandon Miller is a really good shooter. I think at worst, Gradey is a top 3, top 4 shooter in the draft. But I think the fact that his release is so high that he has a bit of an advantage over someone like Jordan. Maybe. I can confirm Gary and Fred hate each other. I mean, it doesn't look promising. Their body language did not look promising, especially like next to each other. Anyway, y'all, I'll talk to y'all later, but I'm really looking forward to this Raptors reset. Be on the lookout for the Gradey Dick scouting video. It is going to come out at some point. I hope tomorrow, the next day. I've got some editing assignments at this point. Also a massive procrastinator. Honestly, it's crazy. Like, I'm still like thinking about the Serbia video, the Kevin Durant documentary. There's like one day I'm just going to like get really motivated for like 48 hours or something for 2 days and just finish up all these videos that I've been talking about. I apologize. It's not a great way to build a relationship with people, is to promise things and then not follow through. It's a problem that I've had for a long time, but I'm going to try to get better at it. So also it's deeply toxic to keep saying that you're going to get better at something that you never get better at, but I'm trying to get better. I don't know. Anyways, we will try. I'll talk to y'all later. Enjoy your weekend. Scotty Barnes camp happening today in Toronto. Looks really dope. Looks like the kids got a lot out of it. Hopefully we will get an announcement about Gradey and Marquis and their press conferences. I don't know if they're going to give Marquis Nowell a press conference, but they should. I think they really should. It's a hell of a story, man, for vertically challenged and undersized people. This is going to be a hell of a story. And this is a city that's always embraced small players. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because Toronto identifies as small relative to the North American landscape. They shouldn't. They certainly shouldn't. And at some point, I'm definitely going to have an hour rant about how Toronto needs to get over its insecurity complex and how I think this was probably one of the best situations. Almost every draft prospect that I know of, maybe with the exception of one in the lottery, would have been really, really happy to land in Toronto. So This is just stuff I've heard, that agents like Toronto, they like the market. And you look at someone like Gradey Dick and how massively he's going to spread his roots in this market. I mean, whether or not he turns into a great player or not, don't even get it confused. His email is lined up with like 3,000 offers for brand endorsement deals because people like charisma, and this is a big city, and it's a big market, and it's a much bigger market than people give it credit for. And I think this is a great organization and a great facility. And I've just been saying that for like 5-6 years. And for the last year, it felt like what I was saying wasn't true anymore. And it really pissed me off. And now it feels like it is true again. And that's going to be really great. So I'm looking forward to the next chapter in Pensar basketball. I don't think, maybe for the next week, you'll see these lives still kind of look like this. Maybe. Obviously, I've been very lazy to move this computer back into the room as opposed to the living room. But I anticipate within a week or so that you'll see them getting a lot better, looking a lot better. I've been thinking about this for a while now. People sometimes bring it up. They're just like, bro, it's 2023. Like every phone camera has a better camera than your 2012 desktop. Personally, I think I just enjoy being different, but maybe sometimes it's good to adapt. So I'll talk to y'all later. Enjoy your weekend and make sure to hit subscribe. We're getting close. I don't know, counting eggs before they hatch, but getting really close to 6,000 subs. I retain my goal of trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. No, getting to 10,000 subscribers. Don't say trying to getting to 10,000 subscribers by the time the season rolls around. So let's do it. And hopefully all of these things, these pies in the air, will bake. All the pies in the oven. I don't know. Anyways, talk to y'all later. Peace.